How was your 2016?
Just end it already!
A short video about endings.
2016 was a year that many were happy to see the end of. It certainly had its share of interesting plot lines. Plot lines perhaps a bit too interesting for the real world. The anticipation provided by 2016's demise provokes an interesting question. Endings, what are they good for? Do they give our narratives their significance? Can you have a story without a stop? Is life meaningful without the big ending? Death. Before we determine if our lives need endings, let's first take a look at endings in the realm of storytelling. Everyone loves a satisfying ending to a film or novel. On the other hand, a film that keeps our attention only to fumble and deliver an incoherent ending can make us furious. Many of the most prominent types of storytelling that we grow up with are all about endings. In a thriller, the entire story and its moral hinge on the last-minute twist ending, the reveal of who or what was pulling the strings all along. In a horror story, one cannot be confident until the last frames of the film who, if anyone, will survive. Anyway, in novels, and short stories in particular, often the last few lines determine whether the entire narrative takes an uplifting, optimistic tone or sinks into cynicism, despair, fatalism. Tweaking the end of a story can often invert the lessons it imparts to us. In 1962, Anthony Burgess released A Clockwork Orange, a novel about maturation and the potential for redemption. When Stanley Kubrick crafted a film adaptation in 1971, he did so with a version of the novel that was missing its final chapter. As a result, the film has no message of redemption, leaving the viewer with a world hopelessly lost to cyclical violence. Interestingly, a form of storytelling that is in some respects, without endings, has skyrocketed in popularity in recent years. Storytelling via franchise. In a story that ends only when it is no longer profitable, the ending is always out of sight, and no ending is truly final. No death, no matter how complete, is irreversible. No villainous act safe from being rendered irrelevant. And it certainly can sap the pathos from a character's death when we know that he or she will inevitably be resurrected.
Hey, I disagree. I really love this type of storytelling.
Oh, well, this is my video, so too bad. Bottom line, it certainly is not difficult to make a compelling case that endings do give our stories meaning. But does that apply in the same way to real life? After all, there aren't many people who would be comfortable being told that their life would be terminated at whatever unknown point made for the most dramatic and narratively satisfying conclusion. And we would happily welcome lost friends and loved ones back. Loss of storytelling pathos be damned. But it is still difficult to resist the pull of viewing our life through the lens of its endings. A relationship that ends poorly might be viewed as a failure, even if it was preceded by years of warmth and intimacy. We give our friends our opinions on the way in which we hope to go, the best way to go. The knowledge that a loved one was miserable for hours at the end will haunt us in a way that knowing they had an entire miserable year earlier in life wouldn't. Of course, we also sometimes gain life lessons from endings. The end of a relationship long past its expiration date might feel liberating. A friend's fight with an illness might give us insight into courage or inspire us to be more intimate and caring with those around us. But it seems crass to argue that these lessons might not be preferably learned in other ways. And of course, there are those who desire to abolish endings in our lives altogether. In the past, those who tried to avoid the big ending met with decidedly poor results. But technology is approaching the point where the end will become a much muddier concept. Would our lives, free from the traditional ending of death, become a meaningless haze, jumbled messes, lacking any narrative arc? Or, as our personalities changed, would we re-establish coherence with smaller, less final endings? Even today, many of us reinvent ourselves, view ourselves as born again, or establish chapters between versions of ourselves. So anyway, 2016, a year that was not critically well received, is gone and dead. Finito! One orbit around the sun reached the finish line, and another trip began. Perhaps the most important thing this miniature ending offers is the sense, even if it is ultimately an illusion, that one story has ended and we can begin the next story free of baggage. Often we think of endings as things in the past to reflect on, or as something to fear in the future. But this ending is a mechanism to allow us to approach the future optimistically, and we can only hope that 2017 has a really, really excellent ending.
Oh wait, it's not quite over. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, and check out our other videos. Thanks for watching!